Let's just start now with everyone talking about how you show your work, why you show your work, and where you show your work. And Eric, maybe we want to start with you because your post that you just posted up on your blog last night or yesterday was awesome, and it's like the perfect kind of intro to what we're doing. You were calling for transparency to your classroom, and that's something that that I'm very interested in. And I often talk about my classroom being turned inside out, meaning, I want my walls to be transparent. I want people to be able to see in. I want my students to be able to interact with those people outside of my classroom. So Eric, why don't you kind of jump in and tell us what you're doing?
Oh, well, I appreciate that. But I think the best part of the post was the picture of you and David, actually. The one, you should share that on G+. But that made it into the post too, and so that was a great fuel for the fire. Anyway, my name's Eric Sable. I did teach Spanish for about 10 years, and now I'm an assistant principal at a Drake High School in San Anselmo. Made sure to get some product placement there. And so this topic, I mean, I'm so excited about it. And yeah, in the post, it's what is it? It's 2014 is the year of being transparent. And so basically it's more of a kind of a provocation. And it isn't just about teachers in their classrooms. And the sort of the old model of education, one teacher, one classroom, shut the door, expert in the room, and collaboration is kind of an exception rather than a cultural norm. And I think that social media, platforms like this are one tipping point that we're all experiencing. Where the classroom now is getting more transparent because people can share not just with their students, not just in their schools, but also with an international community. But then secondly, just to round that out, it isn't just about teachers. I also really kind of throw down about what school leaders need to do to be more transparent, and not just in the visible, physically visible way, but also too in the realm of relationships, and that it's easy to go into a meeting, make some decisions, put those out there. Okay, there you go. This is what we're doing now. I talk a lot about how it's slower work to include people, to bring more people into that process, teachers, students, community members. But ultimately it builds better ownership. It builds deeper understanding and more longevity, because especially when it comes to school leaders, typically a typical school leader is not going to be at a school site as long as a teacher on average. So anyway, it was Sean, David, the instructional rounds work that they're doing at Fountain Valley High School has been a great inspiration of mine. We've tried to implement those twice at my school and come up short, and part of that is the struggle to get people to really open up their spaces to make it a public space rather than a private space. All right, that's probably a way too long synopsis of that.
No, that's good. Thank you for that. John, I'm just going to kind of go down the line in order. I'm going to go left to right here. John, you want to share what you're sharing and showing?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, coming in loud and clear.
I was just having audio issues, and I just got in on the tail end. So can you rephrase the question for me one more time?
Oh, I was inviting you to share how you share and show the work of you as a teacher and or your students.
Okay, great, thanks. I blog with my students, and I blog, well, for myself, but also for my community of teachers at school. And I think that's pretty critical. I started blogging about 5 years ago, and I've got that feedback initially, and it was kind of life changing in a way. And now today, gosh, 5 years later, I can't imagine teaching without it. My students blog, and I blog along with them. So sharing all their work is done kind of digitally with me. They can turn in anything they want that's not digital, but I have yeah, I just call it a digital inbox, and the students turn in their links to their assignments into my inbox, and so then I can grade it right there. I can give them feedback via email because it captures their email address, and I found that is been very handy to have and keeps me really organized, and I have all my students' work then is kind of on a spreadsheet, links to everything that they've done. So I encourage them to share with the world, but they have to share with me too.
Excellent. Sorry. Okay, there I am. Thank you, John. Melissa, what are you doing to show and share your work?
So I am not currently in the classroom. I do professional learning with teachers and staff in Portland Public Schools, so I'm going to come at it from that perspective.
Great.
I do have a professional blog. I have a personal website where I share all my resources for any types of professional learning opportunities. I haven't written a professional blog in terms of a more reflective blog, and that's one of my goals, to do that for this year, to start trying to get what's in my head out into the blog space more this year. And I do a lot of Twitter and social media. I love that. I love sharing out resources and just following conversations with those channels. One of the things I also want to try this year is, I find that, especially in my district, and I'm sure that this is the same for a lot of you, that I continually reach the same people in my district, and I want to try to reach other people, different people, and have an impact with people that aren't necessarily so technology driven or like technology. I want to try to reach those people that maybe see it as a possible way to do things in their classroom or in their jobs in the district. But that's something that I've been struggling with for a long time, is how to get those different voices and those different perspectives of people. And so I'm trying to look at different platforms to reach other people, in terms of trying to find different Twitter followers or trying to use different platforms like Medium for blogging.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could all agree that we need to model this process of showing our work with our colleagues, because a lot of people, and for many good reasons, are uncomfortable with kind of turning over their classroom to the world. And with, I mean, we're preaching to the choir when we do something like EdCampHome, right? It takes a little bit of, we're talking to one type of teacher, and so how do we share that out? How do we encourage our colleagues to do that? So that's great that you're doing that work, Melissa. Moss, why don't you go ahead and jump in and tell us what you're doing?
Well, I'm doing similar things to you guys. I've started blogging, though I don't do it as often as I would like to do it. And above and beyond everything else is Twitter. And I've been using Twitter a lot, and I've been hopefully modeling how Twitter can be used for professional development to some of our faculty who've been lately using Twitter more and more. When we have professional development meetings, especially with our one-to-one laptop program team, I talk a lot about Twitter. And that's bringing a little bit more transparency to, again, the like-minded group of teachers that we have here. But I think we have a problem at our school, being an independent school, that we tend to not like transparency because we're very teacher-focused, teacher-centric. I guess I should say, which makes it hard to be transparent. And one of the things that I've been looking forward to doing is visiting more teachers and encouraging teachers to visit each other within our own school, because that seems to be the first step toward opening up your classroom. And a lot of teachers are very reluctant to do that because, I don't know, I think being an independent school, again, it gives us something of an old school model toward teaching, where you are, again, the center of the classroom, and anyone who comes to observe you is going to be judging you. And that's not the case at all.
You know,
And
Moss, it kind of surprises me, even at your school. And now, are you a private school? Is it a private school? So I would assume that maybe your parents in the community might expect you to be a little more transparent, just because it's private school and they're paying money and they want to see what's happening in the classroom.
That's a good point, but no, it's not the case. As long as things are going well, everybody's happy. And independent
define
schools,
going well. What's what's going
outcomes.
well?
Yeah, we are an outcome-driven school. Kids don't come to independent schools to focus on the process as much as I would like to think that they do. They want the outcomes. They pay the money to go to an independent school to get the scores on AP exams, SATs, and things like that, so they can put them on the resume and go on to bigger and better things after that. But I think there is a turning of the tide a little bit, and more parents, faculty, trustees, anyone you want to throw out there is starting to realize that this old model isn't really working anymore when kids are only getting 5 hours of sleep and are constantly stressed out. And that's bringing more transparency to what we do by enabling us to ask, why are we doing what we do?
Great.
But it would be great if not only teachers would visit more teachers, but parents would come into the classroom on occasion too, because we do have a lot of parent presence on campus. A lot of parents volunteer to work in the bookstore or help out with ambassadoring for prospective applicants, but they don't often come into the classroom, and that would be really fun, I think. That's a good idea.
Thanks, Moss. Thanks. Richard, you want to tell us how you're showing your work and maybe why you do that?
Yeah, sure. Listening to Moss describe his school, it's so different from my everyday reality. I'm in a small continuation high school with that serves as a place where all the at-risk kids of our community go, and so in some ways we're given the freedom and the encouragement to really focus on process, and we'd love outcomes to be a lot more important. That's another topic. So we're also a small school, and I've learned this is kind of my breakout year where I've really plugged into a PLN for the first time and have come out of this island that we've been in, this island of isolation, where all of our showing our work meant just having district personnel and board members and people come through because they heard a rumor that we were doing some cool stuff, whereas where now I can connect with a much bigger community and not only showcase a few of our things, but then see what everybody else is doing and be just blown away by it. So my next step, I'm in this room because this semester that begins in a few days, I want to take all my students' writing, which is just this vast archives of it on Google Apps and in Google Drive, and begin having my students publish their own writing to blog. So that's why I came to this room.
Excellent. Thanks, Richard. Yeah, I mean, especially with student writing, I think one important reason to show your work and have students show and share your work to a bigger audience is because they then become more invested in their product. And but then the other thing is, we want to show our process as well and kind of demystify the process of writing, for instance. I mean, a lot of us have talked about blogging. But because, you know, if you're the only audience for your student, they don't really, you know, it's like, oh, just my teacher's going to see this. I could live with that.
Right.
But if we're encouraging them to share it with a lot of other people, ideally they would take a little bit more time and care with their work. Irby's made it in. Would you like to share what you're doing in your classroom and how you're having your students share?
Sure, I guess so. Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm actually an instructional designer with the federal government. I got into EdCamps I think this past August when I went to EdCamp West Texas. I was looking to see what you guys are doing in the K-12 space that I might be able to use in my work, and vice versa, what I could transfer. And so my take then is kind of, you know, figuring out where where your stuff is appropriate in my space. I blog a little bit. If you go out to my website, urbie.com, over on the left you'll see a couple of links to some blogs, but I'm nowhere near very good at keeping them up. In fact, I think the last time I blogged was about a year ago, because in the training environment where I work, you know, I can't really share a whole lot about what I do, and so I'm trying to get it the mindset of where I can share processes. One thing I'm really into is design thinking, using that with some of the instructional models that I have, and then sharing them within the community where I work, you know, within the federal government. So again, that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Great. Does anyone have? I'm thinking, you know, if we're going to show our work, one kind of important aspect of this is finding an audience. Does anyone do any work with their students on training them how to find and or build an audience?
Let's see. Some teachers I work with are really active in doing that. They kind of run the spectrum. Some blog themselves, some don't. But actually, getting back to the sharing happening virtually, we have a couple teachers that have stolen the Reframed blogging project from Sean and David. Hopefully that was okay. We didn't really sign any contract, but
dude, that's why we do it, is to share and steal alike. Come on, Eric. Come on.
So, no, I know. I say that in jest, but I think that's a good example of how actually your work at Fountain Valley is getting a broader audience, and certainly conversations like this are, you know, we're preaching to the converted. But that said, other high schools, other schools, you know, take it up. It starts with a teacher, two teachers. In this case, it's a team of teachers that are working with ninth graders. Just coincidentally, they're also piloting a one-to-one iPad project-based learning environment. Anyway, so they've taken Reframed, they read Catcher in the Rye, they talked about being a teenager, they kind of melded that into their social issues curriculum as well. So
that's a great entrance into that. Is
yeah, no, it's fantastic. And I think so then my friend, you can follow him at RPM Teacher. He's a tech coach. And he teaches computer science, and he also teaches yearbook as well. He really builds into front loads how to find your audience, because again, the point is the audience shouldn't just be the teacher, it shouldn't just be our classmates, it shouldn't just be our campus, It should be the world. Blog on what you're passionate about. Maybe it's fashion, maybe it's food, maybe it's sports, maybe it's cars, but find your audience and build those connections, again, while you're also working on your writing, while you're also interacting with quote-unquote the real world. So anyway, so I just a little plug for the Reframe project. It's a tremendous opportunity from the ninth grade, and again, this should be happening earlier, I think. You start with a premise of what is your audience. And again, we as adults who are blogging to whatever degree we're doing the same thing. You know, we're connecting with each other on Twitter, but I really liked what Melissa said a lot. we have to break beyond just the people we typically talk to. And this is one vehicle to do it.
Yeah, well, and this is a perfect segue. What I wanted to get into. We only have a few minutes left if we're going to end on time and play nicely in the EdCampHome sandbox. But
forget about that.
How do we evangelize outside of our Twitter community, out of our blog community? How do we expand and invite people, into this so that they're willing to participate and begin showing their work? How do we convert the unconverted? And Melissa, it sounds. Do you have something to say about that, Melissa? It sounds like that's what you're trying to do. Maybe where have you been successful in doing that?
I feel like I don't do as much evangelizing as I used to earlier in my career, just because it's exhausting and it takes a lot of work to do that. And I sort of have been going the more grassroots route lately, in terms of just trying to make everything I do transparent, making it available to show teachers what's possible, to show those people that I don't normally interact with what's possible, and being ready to introduce things if I see somebody showing any kind of interest in something, and just using that as a lead into, oh, well, have you thought about this, or do you know about this, have you tried this, and then just helping them, or making connections between people I know that can help somebody in one school or somebody they can go to. So I'm trying to work that angle.
That's good. It's important, and we need that. Rich or Moss or Irby, anything kind of wrap things up here? Last thoughts?
Yeah, like I mentioned before, I think leading by example is the way to do it. And I've stopped trying to tell people, hey, you should get on Twitter or you should do something in terms of social media, but just kind of sneak it in during a discussion, especially with kids, and show what power being connected brings, and the value of being open and transparent as opposed to being closed. And I've used the term echo chamber a lot in administrative meetings at our school, and made it very clear that the same ideas keep bouncing around back and forth, and without being transparent, we're going to get the same thing over and over again. We're going to keep having to deal with the same problems and come up with the same answers. So just demonstrating why being transparent and open is important is what I've been trying to do. And patience. Rome wasn't built in a day, so we're not going to be able to do this overnight.
This is true. This is true.
I would just add one thing I'm cutting in, I think, but I like what Melissa said too. It's very tiring. Yeah. It doesn't help people just because we're fired up and let me show you how passionate I am, and you're going to see the light. But I think that one thing, especially, I guess, all of us, that leadership is happening from all levels, and this includes kids as well, is to continue to wade in and to invite the people that want to stay out, that want to close their doors, that feel exposed or vulnerable. And that's why the instructional rounds at Fountain Valley High School continues to be fodder for like almost every blog post I write, because it's not the whole staff, but it's a growing group, patiently built, and they see, oh, it isn't a gotcha thing. It's not an administrative opportunity to chop our heads off, stuff like that. And of course, the leaders have to be out doing that all the time. So not going to our comfortable circles, but moving outside of that ourselves, talking to those people. We should be doing 90% of that and 10% of the people that we're like, that we're in line with.
Eric, I think that's super important, and you do a great job modeling sharing other people's work, and I think that's maybe one of the keys and I was just reading, any of you are familiar with McSweeney's, the publishing house McSweeney's? I think it started about 15 years ago, and David Eggers, the guy who founded it, in a recent book, he said publishing other people's work is much easier than publishing your own and thinking about your own writing. And I just thought, man, and it just kind of tied in, Eric, as you were speaking, and Moss is this is the way to model, is if you see someone who's doing something great in their classroom or their students are doing great work, invite them, or don't even invite them, just ask, hey, can I share this out on Twitter? And you show their work, and then the response that they'll get as, hungry teachers looking for something, new and effective will latch onto that, and I think that would be a great way, to bring other people in. Unless anybody have any last, Moss or Rich or Irby, we didn't get a chance from you guys. Any last thoughts?
No, thanks. I see our time's up.
Okay. All right. Then with that, we'll time out and jump back into the stew and see what happens for session 2. Thanks everybody for
You're the best, Sean.
Thanks, everybody.
participating.
Thanks.
Enjoyed it.
Yeah, thumbs up. High four. High four,
Yeah.
Eric. High four.
Oh, sorry. Here, peace sign. How about that?
And Maria, we're sorry you grabbed us right at the end.
Was in somewhere else. That's
Session
okay.
2. Session 2.
Gotcha.
All right. See you, everybody.
See you.
See you guys.
Peace.